Hey you. Yeah, you. I've noticed that almost all of you who are watching my video are not subscribed. You better subscribe. You better click that button right now. I'm watching you. Did you do it? Perfect. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the video. Heyo everybody, it's Mr. Panda, and today we are doing a Panda Rant. It's a segment where basically I'm going to be talking about something completely unscripted, whether that be about anime, whether that be about video games, or just anything nerdy in general. And today's topic is a very important one, the acquisition of Activision Blizzard to Microsoft. It is something that's going to affect the game industry, and is something that I think if you don't know much about it, you should definitely get on your toes and hear more about it to see where we're really going from here. Now, where things are really getting spicy, because it's been going on for a little bit now. I believe it's been going on for at least a year or two. This whole, are they going to be able to acquisition them? Are they going to be able to buy them? I mean, we're talking about a $68 billion deal here. What's really holding them up is the three regulation, pretty much bodies that encompass the US, the UK, and the EU that is holding up this deal, and they're still waiting on a decision because failure with even one of them pretty much means that the deal is dead in the water. As of, and I'm going to date this video, April 27th, 2023, the CMA, which is the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, has now declined the acquisition of Blizzard to Microsoft. Now, they're not sure of all the implication that this holds. They are not even sure if this just means that they're completely done. In a lot of ways it does, because it means that it's a market they're not allowed to do. Like, for instance, if they went with the acquisition anyways, if the other two parties decided to accept it, it basically means the UK is no longer going to allow games from Activision Blizzard and Microsoft to be in the UK out of protections of anti-competition, or it could possibly mean that they would get some sort of embargo on their, IPs. And that's purely speculation. I'm not sure, but that's a lot of where we're kind of tending to go, because we're talking about a third of the regulators that are looking at this deal have just said no. Now, going with this, the response from the two leaders, the two CEOs, the two presidents of Activision Blizzard and Microsoft respectively have been, well, akin to two 10-year-olds yelling at their parents and getting all fussy because they weren't allowed to go to a sleepover. But in more reality terms, we're talking about two mega Goliath companies now throwing accusations and very unfounded statements towards these regulatory, conglomerates. It actually has gotten to a point where one of these presidents actually commented about the fact that this very much announces that the UK is not open for business when it comes to this industry, which is a pretty wild thing to say when we're talking about a group of people, and mind you, a group of people who might not quite understand the market, right? They might not understand how, how much that this will affect the market, but let's really dive in a little bit to what it means if they buy Activision Blizzard. If Microsoft owns Activision Blizzard, it means that they are buying all the studios involved. I am not saying that it's a bad thing for a big company to purchase things and let these studios do what they want and make a lot of money and make great games and be able to have money to make these games. But what I am saying is that some of the practices that they are performing by owning these studios, one of the biggest things that came out of this was Bethesda. They bought Bethesda. They promised Sony that they were going to, at least for the next few games, let the games be played on PlayStation as well. And then these two giant companies decided to get into a pissing match, and Microsoft decided to back out. Microsoft decided, the next, Bethesda game, the next, whatever game that used to be shared, they're all going to end up on just Microsoft, which does mean they'll end up on PC. It's a lot more variety than if PlayStation owned these companies. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that basically on a whim, Microsoft, who now owns these companies, has every right to them, has decided to back out of any fairness to another game studio and pretty much just negated any person who wanted a PlayStation. And that's not good for gamers. That's not good for people who want to play video games. That's not good for the people who are just looking for a little escapism. Now, I'm not saying that Sony is good. I'm not saying Nintendo is good. Nintendo is an out-of-touch group of old Japanese men who will never make a console that is as good as the other consoles. Never. It's a unique experience. They make great consoles that are very interesting to play. All their tech, all their hardware is always 2 generations behind everybody else's. It's so outdated, and it makes it harder to make quality games when you have hardware that can't keep up to the standards of video games. And then there's Sony. I don't know. They seem really out of touch when it comes to what people want. Like, it doesn't seem like they always are on the pulse of the next big thing in a video game title or an IP. They're always a little bit behind on that kind of stuff. It's ridiculous to sit here and think to myself that if it comes down to it, right, it might be best to own a PC, because no matter what, most games eventually get to PC, except for very specific PlayStation exclusives, which most of their exclusives I'm not that interested in. Unless they made a remake of Jak and Daxter, I'm not planning on getting a PS5, right? Like, it's no skin in the game for me. But I think that what Microsoft is doing is kind of evil as well, because it does mean that they have control over at least 10 to 25% of the entire major game industry by buying Activision Blizzard along with every other game studio that they own. Like, it makes the idea that it's a non-competitive thing much more serious, and they will swear up and down the wall that it's not how cloud service gaming works. It's completely fair. There's still competitiveness. It's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, you're taking studios that have historically always put their games on pretty much all consoles except for Nintendo, because they can't get their shit together and make a console that can actually run those games, and you are basically making them all exclusive to Microsoft. You have to get an Xbox, or you have to buy them from the Microsoft Store, or you have to wait until they let it get on Steam, right? Yes, PC Master Race, great, but for people who want to be in their nostalgia, people who have friends on specific consoles, people who don't play games that have crossplay, which happens often enough, on top of that, some people are PlayStation exclusive. Consoles are expensive nowadays. Not everyone can afford a $500-$600 console anymore. And most people grew up with one console. Yes, it will make the flip happen, but at the same time, why are you forcing that choice on people who enjoy the console? Whether that be for the performance of the PlayStation, whether that be the controller and how the controller feels in their hand, whether that just be they've had the same group of friends for several years and they're playing this game together, and they've always played their games together on the PlayStation. That isn't something that you can just sell up the river. Those are experiences that actual people are having that you can't compare to just saying, oh, well, since I own this, your memories, your sweet nostalgia doesn't matter to me. Buy an Xbox, buy it on the Microsoft Store, get a PC, which getting a decent enough PC these days isn't cheap either. I mean, we were talking about for a decent PC, I mean, at least $800 to $1,000, and that's starting on the lower end for a decent enough PC nowadays. The components for a PC keep getting more expensive, but that's a whole different topic. At the end of the day, Microsoft and Blizzard are throwing a tantrum, which Blizzard has no right to be in a tantrum after not too long ago being caught with their pants down for harassing women in the workplace, making them do work while the male employees sat around and harassed them and played video games and talked to them horribly. The fact that a young woman at that company ended up, I'm not going to say it, but she ended up taking a long holiday that she prepared herself due to some of the unsavory things that other employees did. And mind you, this is not conjecture, this is not accusations, this is proven from an internal investigation that was 2 to 3 years long. This was all evidence that they found while they were doing an investigation on Activision Blizzard. And they basically threw it under the rug, said, I don't know what you're talking about, and harassed their employees into not talking about it. And a few employees did, but it was about a year, maybe a year and a half of people talking about it, and now it's done. Now it's over. Now Microsoft wants to buy this big old company for $68 billion and just own most of video games from a terrible company that unfortunately makes games that people like. I don't think anybody's a good guy. I don't think any company that is involved with this spat is a good company, but I do think in the spirit of anti-competitiveness that the CMA made the right choice. They made the right decision, and I hope the EU regulators and the FTC all say no, because they can try to appeal all three, but they'll never get the appeal for all three. Blizzard needs to be set out into the cold, and I know that Microsoft is fighting for this because a little conjecture of their acquisition now that they've offered it is that they're gonna owe Blizzard a few $1 billion if the acquisition doesn't go through. It's money motivated head to toe, because I'll tell you what, if the CMA said no and there was no money on the table for Microsoft to lose to not get the studio, they probably wouldn't be trying to appeal it, even if it's a huge moneymaker, because they still would be saving billions of dollars if there was nothing on the line for them to lose by it getting a no. But at the end of the day, it is about money. It's all about money. It's capitalism, right? It's always about how to make more money. It's not about making good games. It's not about telling good stories. It's about using the artistic and creative people who are a part of these game studios to make as much money as possible and to just kind of influence. I mean, the CEO of Microsoft, in his comments in response to the denial from the CMA, literally talked about how things might get strained for the UK since a lot of their securities and a lot of their systems are now run on Microsoft. A few years back, they made a deal and a lot of it's integrated now with Microsoft. And the CEO made some, in my personal opinion, some passing threats about the relationship between Microsoft and these security companies because the CMA said no. I mean, they're straight out bullying a country because of the fact that they can't own a game studio. I just want my little world to stay how it is. I want everybody's little world to stay how it is. I don't want people to have to be choosing how they play. I don't want things to happen like that. I want gamers and people who just have it as a hobby. I want dads who need a stress reliever. I want kids who have after school playtimes with their friends. I want people who live their life for video games to enjoy it however they want to enjoy it. This video is probably not going to do anything. Like, it's just to kind of get it out, talk about it. Everybody's talking about it, I'm sure. But if we can just say, hey, look at the scale of this, then maybe we can get a few more eyes on it. And that's all this video is trying to do. Get a few more eyes on what's happening here. This video of mine goes to a few different places nowadays. So, leave something in the comments. Talk to me about what you're feeling right now. I want to know how you're feeling about this. I want to feel about how you feel about the future of video games and what's going to be happening. Just leave it in the comments. And as well, as always, this is the end of the video, so subscribe, put a like down on that video, and if you enjoyed the video, come back for another. Look at some of the old ones. I enjoy having people around, whether it's a negative opinion or a positive opinion. So I hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you again in a more positive video. Bye.